Hi, I'm Adam Burton. I'm the pastor at Central Baptist Church in Maysville, Kentucky. During this season of Lent, I am sharing a weekly online Bible study reflecting on the cross and the resurrection. Last week's study was The Cross is the Great Revealer. If you haven't seen it yet, I would encourage you to go and watch it. This week's study is titled The Mystery All. Several years ago, I was in London, England on a mission trip, and while on that trip, I had the opportunity to visit John Wesley's chapel. It's a beautiful church and museum that honors the legacy of one of the founders of Methodism. Adjacent to the sanctuary is what's called the Foundry Chapel, which houses the organ of John Wesley's brother, Charles. Maybe not as well known as his brother, Charles was a prolific hymn writer. Sitting in the small chapel, I picked up one of the hymnals and turned to one of my favorite hymns, "And Can It Be That I Should Gain?" and to sing those beautiful words. And can it be that I should gain an interest in the Savior's blood? Died he for me who caused his pain, for me who him to death pursued. The refrain of each verse in this hymn questions, "Amazing love, how can it be that thou, my God, should die for me?" Author J. Todd Billings points out this refrain is often so familiar that we may struggle to see how utterly shocking it is. Every year we celebrate Easter and speak of the death and burial and resurrection of Jesus. And if we aren't careful, we can neglect to think about the implications of the cross. Think how shocking it is that the God of the universe died for me, died for you. Colossians chapter 1, verses 15 through 23 says, "He is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation. For by him all things were created, in heaven and on earth, invisible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or rulers or authorities, all things were created through him and for him. And he is before all things, and in him all things hold together. And he is the head of the body, the church. He is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead, that in everything he might be preeminent. For in him all the fullness of God was pleased to dwell, and through him to reconcile to himself all things, whether on earth or in heaven, making peace by the blood of his cross. And you, who once were alienated and hostile in mind, doing evil deeds, he has now reconciled in his body of flesh by his death, in order to present you holy and blameless and above reproach before him. If indeed you continue in the faith, stable and steadfast, not shifting from the hope of the gospel that you heard, which has been proclaimed in all creation under heaven, and of which I, Paul, became a minister." How utterly amazing is it that the creator of all things, the head of the church, the fullness of God, would die for us. See, we were once enemies of God, and through Jesus' death, we are now blameless and above reproach before him. It is a truly amazing love that Christ would die for me. The Apostle Mark writes in his Gospel, "And James and John, the sons of Zebedee, came up to him and said to him, 'Teacher, we want you to do for us whatever we ask of you.' And he said to them, 'What do you want me to do for you?' And they said to him, 'Grant us to sit one at your right hand and one at your left, in your glory.' And Jesus said to them, 'You do not know what you are asking. Are you able to drink the cup that I drink, or to be baptized with the baptism with which I am baptized?' And they said to him, 'We are able.' And Jesus said to them, 'The cup that I drink, you will drink. And with the baptism with which I am baptized, you will be baptized. But to sit at my right hand or at my left is not mine to grant, but it is for those for whom it has been prepared.' And when the 10 heard it, they began to be indignant at James and John. And Jesus called them to him and said to them, You know that those who are considered rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and the great ones exercise authority over them. But it shall not be so among you. But whoever would be great among you must be your servant, and whoever would be first among you must be slave of all. For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve. What is it that James and John were seeking? Well, they wanted to be great. And Jesus explains to his disciples that greatness comes by serving. Billings explains that Jesus countered by telling them how his whole life as the true Messiah and King is shaped by a cross-formed love. Jesus came to serve, not to be served. And his entire life, you can imagine this confusion among his disciples where everything about him was to serve others, giving his life as a ransom for many. Greatness in our culture is all about what I have done. It's self-seeking, bringing glory to us. But the way of Jesus is not the way of the world. So what is amazing about God's love for you? Have you thought about that very much? When we contemplate God's love for us, it's hard not to share that love with others. Well, thank you for watching today, and I will see you again next week. God bless.